Fiji have made it through to the quarterfinals of the Rugby World Cup, and in their matchup, they will be taking on England, a team that they have already beaten in 2023. Their hope in history repeats itself in this massive quarterfinal fixture. But in this video, we will be predicting what the Fijian lineup will be looking like for this upcoming quarterfinal game. And hopefully, we do get relatively close. We will start with the front row. Number 1, Ronnie Maui. Number 2, Tavita Ikanaveri. And number 3, Luke Tangi. Now, we have already seen that combination of Ronnie Maui and Luke Tangi together quite often throughout this Rugby World Cup competition, so it would not surprise me one bit if that is what they go with for this quarterfinal. Ronnie Maui making 24 tackles so far throughout the competition, also winning a couple turnovers for his side, which up against a strong side like England could be absolutely crucial. For the Fijians, number 3, Luke Tangi, a physical individual, already making 23 tackles throughout the competition, but I don't see them really modifying too much in the propping department. The only change I could see them maybe making would be Masaki Donge to come into the starting side, seeing as he's already scored 2 tries for the Fijians throughout the competition. At number 2, I believe they will be switching to Tavita Ikanaveri. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if they kept Sam Matavesi in the starting lineup, but I believe after the last 3 performances we have seen from Sam Matavesi, just not quite on the level that he needs to be in that Fijian starting lineup. When Ikanaveri came off the bench in the game up against Georgia, he was quick, he was making running meters, getting turnovers in the breakdown, and his lineouts were relatively accurate. Matavesi in that last game up against Portugal, he did do slightly better than he did the week prior to Georgia, but I still feel like it wouldn't be a bad idea to have him come off the bench and Ikanaveri getting that starting jersey. Looking at the locks now, Asoana Silasila, I have got him in number 4, and then number 5, Te Ihuaru Tharikadavita. Now, we did see Timo Maina Vanua end up with an injury last game. Unfortunately, he injured his knee, and he will be out for this game up against the English. Now, Te Ihuaru Tharikadavita, he actually came off the bench in the last contest rather than starting, although it was relatively early on, so he still had plenty of minutes under his belt. For Asoana Silasila, I have to say it's not completely Matavesi's fault with some of the errors that are happening at line-out time. At times just not quite grabbing them, Asoana Silasila, but still has made 31 tackles so far in the comp. And Te Ihuaru Tharikadavita, he has made 26 in the loose forward trio. Number 6, Lakima Tangivalu, I'm bringing him back in rather than Meli Derialangi, who did start the last game up against the Portuguese. I believe that Lakima Tangivalu, with that explosive speed, the physicality, and his ability to score tries and get turnovers, he is definitely an option for the Fijians in the loose forward trio, and I would love to see him get another chance for them in this quarterfinal. Number 7, there's no one else really for this jersey other than this man, Lavani Botia. The only way I see someone else wearing that 7's jersey is if Lavani Botia is injured or if he is switching to a different position in their loose forward trio. But for me, he's got to start. He's had 5 offloads throughout this Rugby World Cup competition, so keeping that ball alive, also scoring a couple tries and getting himself quite a few turnovers, one in the breakdown, which has been a massive benefit for Fiji. Up against a side like England, we're going to see them try and push the pace, trying to be physical in the forwards. But if Lavani Botia can break up that momentum by winning a turnover or 2, could heavily benefit Fiji's chances of walking away with a victory here. And number 8, a man who's had a huge amount of minutes throughout this Rugby World Cup competition, it is Viliami Mata, who I believe they will be sticking with. He's a physical man off the back of a scrum, also in the breakdown, matching up well with the other forwards in the comp. But looking through now at the backline, I've made quite a few changes compared to what we did see in the last lineup up against the Portuguese. I have to say it just didn't quite look up to the level that we expect from the Fijian backline. So that is why I've decided that they will need to make quite a few changes. Starting at 9 and 10, I have gone with Simeone Kuravuli as the starting 9, and then number 10, Tite Tala. Now, Kuravuli, he had a fantastic game up against the Australians. From that moment on, and actually before that point, I felt that he should have been the starting 9 for Fiji. Frank Lamani brings a huge amount of impact off the bench, and he didn't really do too much wrong in that game up against Portugal. but I think that his impact that he has when he's coming off the bench at 21 compared to when he starts, he has that little bit more when coming off the bench. Plus Quarterfinal, absolutely brilliant player. He's able to nail his kicks. Will also be able to bring that attack in rugby. Number 10, Tete. I think we have seen throughout this Rugby World Cup just how much of an impact that Caleb Munt's injury has had on the Fijians. Tete and Vilimoni Botitu both struggling to try and fill that gap that Muntz has left. Unfortunately, that injury came at the worst possible time for the youngster as he was in some fantastic form, and I believe he would have really helped this Fijian backline throughout this Rugby World Cup. But yeah, I have made those two switches, Quarterfinal and Tete as the 19 combo. Now looking through at the centres, number 12, Joshua Tuisova, and number 13, Semi Radradra. So they didn't play Radradra in the last contest up against the Portuguese. I have moved him from the left wing into the centres. The reason for that is I feel Nayef Levu, he might be able to have more impact coming off the bench in this contest rather than being in the starting side. It would mean that they would need a new captain for the Fijians while he is off the field. But I honestly feel with this combination in the midfield of Tuisova and Semi Radradra, it will be a lot more dangerous for Fiji up against England. Now at 12 for the English, we will more than likely see either Manu Tuolangi or Owen Farrell. Now if it's Farrell, Tuisova is going to have a field day because he will run straight at Farrell every day of the week. And then from there, maybe they bring in an extra defender to try and help Farrell make those tackles. And then that frees up the space on the outside for the likes of a Radradra to get it out wide. And that is where Fiji can be extremely dangerous in this quarterfinal. We saw them have 7 offloads up against the Portuguese. Believe it or not, Portugal had 14 throughout that game. So almost, it was like Portugal were playing the Fijians' own game against them. And they were showing how effective that it could be throughout their match. But for Fiji, if they can have 7 offloads throughout this contest and half of those lead to little opportunities to score extra points, I'm sure they'll be very happy with their result. But yeah, brilliant combo. If they go with Tuisova, who's already scored 2 tries in their number 12 jersey, would be awesome to see him get another one here. Number 11, I have gone with Vinaya Habosi, and that is the reason that I put Radradra in the midfield. 3 clean breaks so far for Habosi throughout this Rugby World Cup comp. He's a brilliant player. He can break the line. And at the moment for England, whether or not that's Marchant or Arundel out on that wing, I still believe Vinaya Habosi will be extremely dangerous against both of them. So I did give him that starting spot. Number 14, Sareli Mungwala. And number 15, Eliza Droasisi. Now Mungwala's one of those players that even though there were a couple rough moments throughout that game up against Portugal, the man still had almost 200 metres carried. Now, there were a few reasons for that. The first one was because he didn't pass the ball. The second was because he's a very good player. And if he can get that balance right, help set up his teammates, I believe he would adapt to number 14 pretty well. Even though more than likely in the starting lineup for the Fijians, they would go with Celestino Ravatamanda, or they might look back at Ajita Waninyolo. But I'd love to see Sareli Mungwala in the starting lineup, but he can't have 15 because 15's already occupied by Eliza Droasisi, having 116 metres carried in his last performance. They did rest him last week, which tells me they were saving him for this moment up against the English, in which he did play very well the last time the two sides did go head-to-head. So I would give Eliza Droasisi that chance at 15 to show exactly what he can do. He's in some tremendous form. He's continued that since Super Rugby Pacific, so you've got to give him more minutes, and this is that perfect opportunity. But now looking through at the reserves. Now in that first game, now looking through at the reserves. For Fiji in their game up against Australia, it was the starting lineup that won them the game. In their game up against Georgia, it was the reserves that came on, made the impact, and helped the Fijians get the victory. In that game up against Portugal last week, it wasn't really either. There were moments for individual players, but overall for Fiji, the handling and the penalty count just really let them down throughout the 80 minutes. So I feel like I've gone with a little bit more of a balanced bench in this contest, and I hope the Fijian selectors do end up doing the same. But for the bench, But for my bench, number 16, Sam Matavesi, I feel he should still be playing in this contest, even though he's had a couple rough performances. But the pressure that he feels when he comes off the bench late in a game, I believe will be a different kind of pressure than when he is in the starting lineup. I feel like he'll go a lot better when he comes off the bench compared to that starting XP. Number 17, Penny Ravai, huge amount of experience for that man and very handy to have in the scrums. And then number 18, Masaki Donge. I mentioned how he could start this game perhaps. He's already scored those 2 tries. Brilliant player, always finds a way of being ready for that pick and go around the side of the breakdown, getting those extra meters for the Flying Fijians. Now the rest of the forward replacements, number 19, Albert Tuisui, and number 20, Mele Derialangi. Now I have gone with those 2 because in the absence of Timo Maina Vanua, there aren't really many players who can actually go into those locking jerseys for the Fijians. So I believe Albert Tuisui will actually be the lock-in replacement. But alongside him, I believe Mele Derialangi can still play a little bit of lock if need be. But if Asoana Silasila and Te Ehua Ruth Rikaravita can both avoid injury, that could mean that we see both of those 2 in Tuisui and Derialangi go into the loose forward trio rather than the lock-in duo. Looking through now at the back replacements. Someone who had a tremendous game up against Australia was Frank Lamani. In that game he played 21, and in this game up against England, I believe that should be what the selectors do end up going with. He's a brilliant player, an impact player, getting the kicks over late in a game, which could be exactly what the Fijians need to win them the contest. Number 22, Vilamoni Botitu. I believe even though he had a mixed bag of a performance up against Portugal, they won't take him completely out of the side, giving him the chance off the bench for this outing. And number 23, Waisia Naitalevu, scored 2 tries throughout this competition, couple clean breaks along the way. He had 3 handling errors last week though, up against the Portuguese, and that was really hurting the Fijians with the amount of times that they dropped the ball. I think that it'll be a real game changer if he comes off the bench in this game rather than starting. Let Tuisova and Radradra have that midfield combo, and then from there you can bring Naitalevu on. That could allow for a little bit of a reshuffle in the back line. Perhaps Radradra does pop out to the wing, but I feel Waisia Naitalevu off the bench could be a massive difference for the Fijians in this quarterfinals. But nonetheless, that is going to be the end of this video, ladies and gentlemen. Do let me know who you believe Fiji will be going with in their starting lineup and reserves for this monumental quarterfinal match in the Rugby World Cup. We will be doing the live commentary for the game when it is taking place. It is a 4 a.m. kickoff on Monday morning New Zealand time. You do not want to miss it, as it is going to be an epic fixture. I should mention as well, as soon as the lineup is announced, we will be having a video come out on the channel alongside the preview, the review of the game, and everything else to do with this Rugby World Cup. But thank you all very much for tuning in. Hope you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Fun fact, this is actually my 2nd time recording this video. I recorded the first time, the file corrupted, so we did do it again pretty much straight after. So hopefully I've said roughly what I said the first time round in this 2nd video. But thank you all very much for tuning in, and I will see you all for the next one.